Stanley Style banjo picking, a sound that I have chased for years and years and still chase. I had a couple of y'all ask how I get the sound, or how would one sound like Ralph, and I figured I'd make a video on it with what I have learned over the years and share some information. Quick disclaimer, this is going to be a wide scope of a video, so we're going to cover a lot of things from banjo setup to right hand picking patterns to different eras of Ralph. So there will be chapters, skip around or watch all the way through, and there will be also extra resources in the description of the video below, directly from Ralph as well as from another channel on here, the Banjo Outlaw. Really good channel. Check him out for Stanley Style picking. And yeah, because the scope is so wide, I'm going to assume you have some base knowledge of the banjo. So if something is unclear and it doesn't make any sense, write a comment or send me an email and we'll get it sorted out. But to prevent this video from being hours and hours long, I'm going to assume you have some base banjo knowledge. Alright folks, so let's go ahead and talk about the setup. What are we going to do to get your banjo sounding like Ralph Stanley's banjo? Well, the truth to be told is a lot of it, the vast majority of it, is the operator, the way you play it. However, there are a lot of things you can tweak to get closer to that sound without trying to play exactly like Ralph. So obviously you're going to need a banjo. It helps if you have a resonator on it. It helps even more if you have an archtop tone ring in it. Okay? You can get the sound with a flathead. You just have to keep in mind that, Ralph played an archtop almost all of his career. There are a couple recordings where he had a flathead, but when you think of the Ralph sound, you're going to be thinking of the sharp archtop resonator banjo. That's the baseline. Now, more specifically, you're going to want a head that is taut, real tight. I mean, if you have a drum dial, don't be afraid to get it up to, I've had mine up to 96 before on a smooth head. Don't be afraid to go too tight. Heads are cheap enough, you can put a different one on if you bust it. So you're going to want your banjo head really tight. Now, if you want early Ralph, you're going to want a frosted head, or a frosted top or frosted bottom. Either one would be okay. That would be back when he played with Carter. If you like later on when he played on the Stanley tones that Frank Neat made, you're going to want a smooth head. Now, Ralph typically had a 5-star smooth head on the Frank Neats. That 5-star doesn't make him anymore, so check eBay if you can find them. Reverb. I've found some in lots of banjo heads, like 10 different banjo heads, and I seen a 5-star in there and I bought it. So keep your eyes peeled for stuff like that. However, if you want to buy something brand new, Remo makes a cloudy head, that they call it, and it works pretty well for that later Ralph era. Lastly, on the setup, you're going to want your tailpiece pretty low to the head. Now, that's subjective. You don't want it touching your tone ring. You don't want it to kill your sound, and if you start going too down and you feel like it's choking the sound of the banjo, just come back a little bit. Raise it up just a little bit. Let's see. Strings, the lightest gauge possible. I buy from America Banjo Company. Ralph has written before that in a book that he used all lights. So I bought a custom set of all lights from American Banjo Company. I will put the specific gauges on the screen here in case you want to get the exact same strings I use. And then bridge. I could make an hour-long video about banjo bridges alone. So I'm going to cut it short. Basically, put on what you want. Thinner the better, generally speaking, for a cracky, loud sound. However, when you get to cranking the head, putting the tailpiece down, the more you take off the bridge, it can get, I mean, you can peel paint off of a wall if you play in front of it. It's very, very sharp. So right now I've got a bit thicker of a bridge on. If you've seen previous videos, I change my bridge a lot because depending on what era basically of Ralph I want to emulate, you know, you could put a really thin bridge on this and it would make it sound crackier like the later era of Ralph. So that's your Ralph setup. You're gonna want a resonator, archtop if possible, bluegrass banjo, thin strings, head crank down, tailpiece crank down, and play around with the bridge. I would start, you know, you can buy a set of 5 generic factory floor bridges for like $10 on Amazon. Just buy a set of them and start sanding them down real thin until you get the thinness that you like. Your roll pattern is going to be something like this number. It doesn't sound like a whole lot, okay? But it is. It's actually, I would say, the most useful Ralph roll. If you look at How Mountain Gals Can Love, the kickoff for that. A pinch. A lot of that was that roll pattern. You know, up to speed. Now, back to what I said about dropping your thumb. It helps when you get to play up to speed to drop your thumb, but I know plenty of guys who don't do it, and they play faster than me. So don't feel like you have to drop your thumb down when you do the, you know, don't feel like you have to do that. But that is going to be the base Ralph roll. And the closer to the bridge, the better of the Ralph sound you're going to get. Obviously, you don't want to play behind the bridge, but you want to be pretty darn close. I mean, I'm planted. You're not supposed to touch the bridge, I've always heard, but I do. I put my ring finger on it and then my pinky behind it. I kind of rest the bridge in the crack of my ring and pinky finger. Okay. Ralph seldom did the split roll. If you do use a split roll, instead of dropping your thumb every time, instead of doing this, instead of dropping your thumb, he would typically alternate, and sometimes you can kick it off with the index and sometimes you can kick it off with the thumb. That's another thing to play around with. I know I'm throwing a whole bunch of rolls out at you, but don't fret. It's gonna all make sense here in just a second. So let's start a tune, a song. Let's learn the kickoff to I'll Fly Away, okay? So in the Stanley Style, we're gonna play around with hitting open strings as the melody note instead of doing a whole lot of slide work. Now you can do the slide work if you want, but to simplify it, we'll just play I'll Fly Away. So if you catch the difference in that, it's a lot of index as your lead finger. And a lot of it is the forward roll And then the roll that we learned at the beginning, it's essentially the Foggy Mountain breakdown roll. That deal. Okay, so up to speed, you're gonna work with something like. So the biggest difference is just using the index as your lead melody, okay? So how about the lick? What are some Ralph-isms? If you've got the roll down and this is all hogwash and you don't need to know that, what's the lick? Okay, the Ralph lick, way up here, you'll hear it a lot when he's on his backup, sometimes in the leads of his earlier stuff. It is going to be way up on the 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10th fret on the 2nd string, okay? And all you're doing is you're bending the 2nd string. Okay, so that first roll we learned in the video, the Foggy Mountain roll, every time you hit that index, you're going to bend up. With that lick, really, if you have light strings like I mentioned at the beginning, really get the note up there. It really sells that you're confident in your playing. You know, don't do this number. Don't just barely do it. I mean, get up there. So when you're showing your buddies, look at this hot backup lick here, don't do this. You gotta get up there. Like, to where you're almost touching the 4th string. And they'll think, wow, this guy is an expert at Stanley Style backup. Alright, I hope that helped you all out. And if it did, let me know. And if you made it this far into the video and it doesn't make a lick of sense to you, also let me know. Send me a comment or shoot me an email and I can help you. I love to talk about this stuff, and you know, I wish when I first started learning out that how to play in this style that I had somebody who had already done it for many years and would tell me how to do it. So I want to offer that that ability for whoever may be trying to learn this style. It gets a lot more complicated. It's not just limited to the 2-roll patterns and this real simple stuff that I showed you in this video. But if you can do that, you can do the rest of it. And I just want to say thank y'all. Let me know if there are any questions or concerns, or you plumb didn't agree with something I said, or whatever it may be, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.